you up. Now, Mr. Speaker, this issue of pension is something which is very, very pertinent. And it's something that we in this parliament must really consider putting some form of discipline into the issue of pension schemes. I know my good friend, the majority leader, means well by looking at a way of establishing a pension scheme that will take care of the interests of all county assemblies and their staffs. But I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, that my good friend is just opening up a can of worms. In the last parliament where I sat with him, we were trying to collapse the two big LAP fund and LAP set into LAP trust and LAP fund into one scheme. And the amount of lobbying and fights that we got, we didn't actually get anywhere. Earlier, there was a statement which was brought by Senator Faki, which was raising serious questions in terms of the management of pensions. I think what we need to do, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to beseech the majority leader, as we debate this bill, we also have to put some form of discipline.
Order, Senator Kamau.
Put some form of discipline in this issue of pension schemes. How do you work? I see that the majority leader said that the retirement age should be not less than 50. In other jurisdictions, people don't even talk about retirement, because the older you get, the wiser you become. But I think in this country that we live in, because of the demand for jobs, you know, people are encouraged to take early retirement. You know, people are encouraged to be able to retire and go home and do something else to give room to the younger generation to take out positions. But I think what is important is for us to be able to find a way where we do not over-legislate. That has always been one of my biggest pet peeves. Sometimes I feel like we over-legislate, we create jobs for people, but when you see the indiscipline in the management of these pension funds, where someone spends, you know, sell their cows, including mortgaging their houses, to be able to come to Treasury here and follow their pension. You know, every so often you find people who walk around. There's a gentleman, a guy called Karanja, Peter Karanja. Peter Karanja one day met me at a KCB bank and told me that he needed to speak to Mr. Kili because of his pension. And every single day, Mr. Karanja calls me. I connected them with Kili, but he's still complaining that his money has not been paid. This is a man who is over 80 years old. And he's got his calculation properly. I think, Majority Leader, what I wanted you to include in this bill is to clearly put a mechanism whereby when an MCA, I don't know whether this covers MCAs, but a staff of the county assembly retires today, which is December 3rd. By January 3rd, when he's supposed to be getting a salary, he can be able to draw down on his pension. But right now, you can't really say we have anything like that, because all these pension schemes, and we are going to fight them now. I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, we are going to pursue them. We are going to demand audits on how they spend their money. Because most of them are now busy building, you know, apartment complexes. They are busy buying assets all over, including even looking at how much county government owes them in penalties and interest, so that they can be able to go and negotiate on what they are now calling asset swaps. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to beseech my dear colleague, the majority leader, to be able to bar any sort of interest when it comes to, you know, remunerations, or when it comes to deductions not having been forwarded. And because this is a cycle, I don't believe that county governors intentionally decide not to remit the deductions. The truth of the matter is because sometimes money is delayed from the Exchequer to the accounts. This is a HR process where you know this is your gross salary, these are your deductions, so it is done. And most of the time, money delays reaching people's salaries. Sometimes even we ourselves in this parliament delay in getting our salaries. Sometimes our staffs don't even get their salary until 2 weeks. That's a reality. Sometimes KRA charges us penalties for us not having paid to KRA the deductions. But the truth of the matter, the Exchequer has delayed. So I would like to request that in the event that there's proof that there's a delay from the Exchequer, county assemblies should not be punished. They should not be charged any interest or penalties. So I'd like to request that you relook at your penalty clause. Look at the interest clause. Either eliminate so that we can do God's work properly. We can be able to ensure that people retire honorably. We can also be able to ensure that our county governments, our county assemblies, are not pushed to making deals now, to swapping their assets, so that they can be able to clear these interest and penalties. So as we sit in this parliament today and deliberate on this county assemblies pension scheme, it is also important for us, we are not in this bill per se, to also consider other distinguished men and women who have served this country. We've got people like the Auditor General, for instance. The Auditor General there was a day I met with the former Auditor General, Ouko. And Ouko said, I've served this country for many years. I've gone into retirement. And guess what? I don't even have a pension. I'm sure the Attorney General will probably say something the same or something different. There is a bill that in the last parliament I introduced here. But when I introduced that bill, I was forced to actually withdraw the bill. It was the retirement scheme of the former vice presidents, former prime minister, and other designated officers. That issue was set aside. So if we are being honest, that we want to make sure that for the time God has given us on earth, when we serve as public officers, when we continue enjoying our remunerations, when we retire, I shouldn't have to sell my cows to be able to pursue for me to be paid my pension. So I think, Majority Leader, I would request that you really look into that, consider it. There's one other thing that I think makes it very difficult for pension schemes to be managed effectively. This has got to do with the establishment of the board. I can see in this bill, and I perused through it, it says that at least for them to be able to call a meeting, 6 board members must be able to, sign so that the chair can be able to call a meeting. The relationship between the CEO and the chair must be clearly defined. Who is more powerful? Is it the chairman of the pension scheme? Is it the CEO? So that it is easier. You guys are there to do God's work. You are there to make sure that young Kenyans who serve diligently, they gave their sweat and blood. When they retire, they can be able to continue being honorable. In fact, I think it might even be a recipe for ending corruption in this country. Because you'll find, which is very, very sad, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that Kenyans who work, they're diligent. They go to work every day, 8 to 5. Are teachers, staffers at the assembly. The day they retire like this, they celebrate, there's a party. But trust you me, that will be the last day they'll be able to enjoy any money coming to them. Having served for a long time. So, Mr. Speaker, I really would like to beseech that my good friend focuses on how the retirees will be able to access their funds. As a matter of fact, if today you ask me, whether there is a set amount for civil servants who have worked and their money has been deducted from their salaries and it has been forwarded to one of these pension schemes, like Lab Trust or Lab Fund. That set amount of money, how is that set amount of money determined? Yet, these schemes are busy investing. You know, we should come up with a scheme whereby we are able to do, and I will bring up a statement here, or a motion, to be able to investigate these retirement schemes, to see how many members do you have. If you have 10,000 members, how are you paying these 10,000 members? Are you paying these 10,000 members based on a scheme or a particular amount that you've set that they will receive for the rest of their life? Or are you paying them based on how much you are making from your investments? If you take, for instance, even Kenya Power as an example, I know they have built houses, and the retirement scheme agency have built houses in Karen. Those houses are being sold for about 103 million. A lot of cabinet secretaries have bought those houses. Those houses belong to that scheme, pension scheme. But who is benefiting, Mr. Speaker? Who is making, when the payments are being made, is a staffer of Kenya Power who has contributed to that scheme benefiting from the money which the scheme is getting after they sold those houses. We just need to be a little bit objective. We also need to know that these schemes which are being introduced, that we sit here and we pass laws to be able to establish them, we are not creating jobs and something which in Britain they call a hole in the wall, like an ATM, for the CEOs and the board members always to be milking it, going in there and just getting money. It will be prudent for us to know as a country whether the amount of money contributed by the assemblies, when they now transfer, on that money is transferred to this new scheme, which is being proposed by the majority leader. We will want to know what does the balance sheet say? How much has been deducted from their salaries? How is that money being invested? And what benefits are they getting? Mr. Speaker, I know most of us are businessmen here and women. You know very well that you've invested about 1 million shillings. You expect to be able to get at minimum, 30% in terms of profit. So over time, you've worked, maybe you've worked for 30 years. Those 30 years that you've worked for, how much can you equate it for? That money, if it has been deducted from your salary and it is put in that pension scheme, has that money remained as 10,000 shillings? Or has that money been now used by the management of that scheme to be able to make business? Because it's money you are lending them. That money, you are not just putting it in an escrow account for you to be able to get that money tomorrow. We want to ensure that you continue living a good life. So unless we rain down on these pension schemes, we will not be doing anything. We will just be creating jobs for a CEO, creating jobs for a chairperson, creating jobs for our friends who becomes members. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Section 5 of this bill, I'm just going to read it. It says, upon commencement of this act, contributions required to be made under subsection 1 and 3 shall be deducted by a sponsor from the salary of the member in each month on which the salary is paid, and shall be paid into the scheme together with the sponsor's contribution before the 10th day of every calendar month, or before any other day which may be notified in writing or approved by the authority. Mr. Speaker, I would wish that the majority leader will expound this section and says that the authority shall take cognizance of the fact that sometimes the Exchequer delays in remitting the money. So, Mr. Speaker, I can see the time is running up and you're trying to eat into my time. But it's okay. But I wish that, my dear friend, you will, on this particular last sentence, which I'm going to try and highlight, where you say that, or any other day which may be notified in writing or approved by authority. I think you should go back to the function of the authority and indicate that they have to be cognizant of the delays by the Exchequer. In fact, even editing this clause could be that upon receipt of the money by the Assembly from the Exchequer, because that's something you can be able to prove. Today we are here debating, we are still waiting, I'm sure you're going to be tabling Kara, you know, for us to be able to divide money among us the 47 counties. Mr. Speaker, let me not say what I was about to say. But let me finish with that one point, because I know you really want to table Kara. I think change this clause, please. Make sure that we deny these pension schemes the interest and the penalties that they are using around to say Mandera County owes them 6 billion. Yet maybe the principal amount is only 20 million. Because the amount of money that they are using now to be able to go into counties and say, let us agree on asset swaps, is based on that interest and penalties. So finally, Mr. Speaker, as I promise, I will bring a motion to this House to be able to audit all these pension schemes, to be able to get value for money. All Kenyans, teachers who are retired, even previous members of the county assemblies who have retired, their money, either money which has been paid to NSSF, their money which has been paid to Love Fund or Love Trust, has got to be calculated based on the amount of benefit that those schemes have been able to get using that money. So if I've contributed, hypothetically, if someone has contributed about 3 million based on their work, what is the value of that 3 million compared to how much these schemes have benefited from that 3 million? It cannot be that the schemes have billions of shillings worth of properties, yet their own contributors are languishing in poverty. It can't. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator